Okay, sorry. The title of my talk tonight is For What It's Worth. I just want to have a look at the idea of value and some examples in the Bible. Don't worry, it's got nothing to do with finances or the stock market or anything like that. So we're just going to start in Mark chapter 14 and verse 3. So it says here, and being in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at meat, there came a woman having an alabaster box of ointment of spikenard, very precious, and she brake the box and poured it on his head. Now, there's a little bit that I want to look at in this verse and some of the other the following conversation that occurs. To put us in the time frame of everything, this is what they call the Passion Week, or the week leading up to Jesus' crucifixion during the feast of Passover in all Judea, but specifically in Jerusalem. So Jesus was staying in Bethany, which was just outside of Jerusalem, because it was chockers in Jerusalem, because everyone was in the city for the festival. So he was staying in Bethany, and they would sort of travel in and out. So there was this particular occasion where this particular woman, she comes into or is already at the house, and she performs this act. Now, I just want to give you a bit more of an idea of what's going on here. Now, it says a box, an alabaster box, but in your margin it might be translated as a flask of oil. Now, this flask has actually got quite a bit of significance, and it makes more sense when you understand what it is as to why she broke it. Because, I mean, someone breaking a box over your head doesn't really have quite the effect that you probably think they're trying to portray here. But what it's talking about is that natural alabaster or calcite is a soft and easily carved material, and they would, in terms of, well, it's not really pottery, but I guess in some form they would make these flasks out of this material, but they were very easily broken. But people would store expensive ointments in these flasks, but they'd actually seal them to protect the ointment from evaporating. So they didn't really have the same materials that we have today. But what it would be was that you'd be presented with this gift, and it would be this precious ointment, and it was sealed. So it didn't have a cork in it that you just pour a bit out. That's nice. It was completely sealed. So if you wanted to use it, you would actually have to break it open, and it's sort of a one use only. So you would obviously need to break it to release the ointment. So there's actually a bit of a sacrifice to use this particular thing, and it had to be important. You weren't just going to put it out for going to the movies or whatever. They didn't have movies, but they and what the various narratives sort of say, or the people that write about these sorts of things, they sort of they look at it and they say, perhaps due to the expensive nature of it, it may have been part of a dowry. So when you got married, it cost you, because you have to effectively buy the wife or buy your bride from the family, because they would be part of that family, helping support it, helping to run the household, to go and work in the fields and all that sort of stuff. So there's a dowry involved. Sometimes it was the other way around. Anyway, there was this gift, and it was either a dowry or maybe an inheritance from her father if he didn't have any male heirs, as Pastor Rob was talking about, inheritance on the weekend. So what they found is that archaeologists would have found that it was common to find these in tombs where people around this period near Jerusalem, as people would honour a deceased loved one. So as we know, and we're probably familiar, we'll just keep reading here. It says, "And there were some that had indignation within themselves and said, why was this waste of the ointment made? For it might have been sold for more than 300 pence and have been given to the poor." And they murmured against her or criticised her. So we see here they sort of perceive this as a waste. They go, well, that's a very valuable flask of precious ointment that has intrinsic monetary value. And it could have been sold, and then the money that would have been gained from that, we could have given it to the poor, because we're so considerate and we want to make ourselves look very pious while we're hanging out in Jerusalem. Because that was quite common, is that people would sort of had this expectation of being more considerate of the poor while they're during this festival, whether that's just for show or whether it was on their conscience to be mindful of helping others. But this comment is made, is that wouldn't it have been better to sell it so that we could support many people? Now, we know that typically Judas is the greedy boy, but the other disciples are included in here, and the other account is in Matthew, in trying to point out what they thought was a better idea. They thought, well, we could have made some money and used it for a better good. Now, just so that we understand, I guess, the value that we're talking about here, the pence or a denarii was a Roman silver coin. And from the parable of the vineyard, it's considered a day's wages. If you remember, Jesus talks about they agreed for a penny a day. So it was a denarius, or a Roman silver coin, was considered 1 day's wage. So times that by 300. So 300 days' wage. So whatever you earn in a day, times that by 300, and that's what was considered the worth of this ointment. Let's keep reading in verse 6. "And Jesus said, leave her alone. Let her alone. Why trouble ye her? She hath wrought a good work on me. For you have the poor with you always, and whensoever you will, you may do good to them. But me you have not always. She hath done this, so she hath done what she could. She is come aforehand to anoint my body to the burying. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached throughout the whole world, this also that she hath done shall be spoken of for a memorial of her," which is a direct prophecy, because I'm reading it now. Jesus acknowledges the true cost of this act to this woman. He says to the disciples, well, the poor will always be available for you to do good to them. He wasn't sort of dismissive of the poor and said, well, there's always poor people, you can always give them a hand. He's just sort of saying, well, she's weighing up the value of what's in front of her, and she has possibly been listening and paying attention when I said that I'm going to leave, or I'm going to die, or I'm going to, fulfill my Father's work very soon. And maybe she thought, oh, that must be something that's going to happen. Whereas the disciples just sort of went, oh, when are you coming back? All the time. And he said that she's done something that is a cost to her. And she's done it to honour my worth, my life, my deeds, but this is not enough. In fact, he says she has done what she could. And to her, she's going, what's the most expensive thing that I have that I could use to honour this man who has changed my life, who has changed the lives of all the people that he has come and spoken to and been in contact with? And she's done what she's could, what she's been able to. And, she's used what was reserved for the most beloved and precious in her life, and she decides it's this man. It's not, whoever her relative is, or her husband, or whatever other people in her life. She says, I'm going to sacrifice this precious ointment to this man because I hold him in higher value than anyone else in my life. And I want to bestow what I can and sacrifice this to him. And he points out that she's anointing my body for burial because after his crucifixion, it never happens. If you remember the story, the Marys, there's a few of them, they were going to the tomb to anoint the body with the precious herbs and ointments that they'd purchased, but he was gone. So his body has been anointed for burial before he's actually died, which fits in with a lot of what Jesus did. He said, I'll do it now, and it will mean something later. So there's a difference to the monetary exchange of an item's worth and the priceless value to an individual. And, I believe it's sort of highlighted here. I thought I'd give you a physical example, which I brought with me, because that's how physical objects work. This is a pocket watch. This is the original Kaiser Movement Waltham pocket watch. In fact, it has the initials ALD. The founder was Aaron Lufkin Dennison, and it was made in 1901. It's 121 years old, this watch. Now, this has monetary worth. In fact, it was valued a few years ago, and I won't tell you what it is, just because this is going on YouTube. And it's probably changed in value since then. But, you go, well, that's an interesting antique. But what is it worth to me? This is my great-great-grandfather's pocket watch. He fought in the Second Boer War in 1900, and he was wounded. After he returned home in 1901, his wife gave him a brand new pocket watch. 15 years later, he was involved in the Battle of the Somme, where he lost all his toes to frostbite, standing in mud. Visit France, they say. My grandfather lived with his grandparents for 7 years in Yorkshire. After my grandfather's grandfather died, this was given to my grandfather, who gave it to me on my 18th birthday. So this could be sold for money to buy food or to give to the poor, but it has greater significance to me than any monetary value because, a few weeks ago my grandfather passed away. So it's a heirloom and a loomy hair that, holds special significance to me. Luke chapter 15. So it's just a physical example of something that someone could look at and go, well, we could figure out how much that's worth, and you could sell it for money. But that money could never replace what it means to me. Luke chapter 15 and verse 8. So we're going to read a parable now. So the first one was an account of something that happened with Jesus. And this is a parable, as Pastor Rob explained, was an example or a story with a moral behind it that was meant to, to bring something out. And I saw this when we were reading the following passage, and it sort of made me have a bit more of a look into it. So just in verse 8 it says, either, and the previous verse is talking about a shepherd who's lost one of 100 sheep, and he leaves 99 and he goes looking for the other one. And when he brings it back, he's very, very happy to spend that effort to go and find one that was lost. So Jesus adds to that this other example. Either what woman, having 10 pieces of silver, if she lose one piece, doth not light a candle, and sweep the house and seek diligently until she find it. And once again, I just want to open this up a bit more and just have a look at what's occurring here. Because it's another one where we sort of, perhaps like many of us, sort of read over and go, yeah, I know what that means, and read the next verse and we get it. The 10 pieces of silver are more than just savings kept in the house. It's not, like she dropped her money box and one rolled under the bed. My Bible identifies it in my margin as a valuable silver coin worn in a 10-piece garland by married women. And you can look it up, and there's various illustrations and things, and it's basically a band of material that they would wear around their head with the rest of the headdress and everything, and it would had these coins that were sewn into it that would sort of dangle down and look very pretty. And that was part of their wedding gift. That's what they would wear when they were getting married, and it was a symbol of her relationship with her husband. Now, 10 in Bible numbers, means completeness or order or responsibility in various aspects. The silver coin here is a drachma, and it's actually the only Greek version of this coin in the Bible. So if you look for the word that's used here, this is the only spot it's ever used. Silver is in other places, but this is the only one that identifies it as a drachma. And lo and behold, a drachma is 1 day's wage. So it's the same as the other one. So here we have 10 days wage worth of coin. But once again, I'm not saying immaterial because it is material, but it's the coins have value, but it's not that when she lost it, she went, oh no, there's my groceries gone for the week. It was, this is a part of who I am. This is a part of my relationship with my beloved, with my husband. And I feel incomplete when it's missing. I realize that it's gone and I don't feel right about it. I want it back. Now, as I said, other notes that I see behind this that people have done studies about it is that in archaeology, it shows that people often lost coins between the loosely fitted stones of the floor. They didn't have one of these. You go, well, light a candle, yeah, that's easy, and just sweep the floor, you'll find it pretty quick. What they were doing was that they would have to light a candle, and then, it was actually an oil lamp, and then they have to sweep all through the gaps of this, the stones that had been fit together because it had fallen down somewhere, and they would try and listen for it as they flick it out, and it pings off something and rolls around. So it's not that she, put the Roomba around, put the Roomba around and then just emptied it out and went, yeah, there it is. She had to diligently search for it because it wasn't just $5 that had gone missing. It was something that was important to her, and she diligently swept it out until she found it. Verse 9. And when she hath found it, she calleth her friends and her neighbours together, saying, Rejoice with me, for I have found the piece which I had lost. Likewise I say unto you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner that repenteth. She's so excited about this because it's worth more than the value of money. I mean, no one rings you to say they found $50 that they lost this morning. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever. But to her, she is excited to restore something of importance that she feels incomplete when it's gone. How many people have had Renee, ring them to say, can you pray because I've lost my wedding ring again? They've checked the x-rays and it's not there. And that she's excited when she finds it again, and that's what it is, that, it's sharing in that joy where you go, this is something important and I've asked the Lord to restore it to me. And when he does, you want to tell everyone that you're now complete. The value of it is worth more to the owner than what you could exchange it for something else. So bringing these ideas together, your life is worth more to God than whatever intrinsic value you think it may be exchanged for. The angels are so excited when they hear that a sinner has repented. That's the point of the parable, is to say that when I get one of my betrothed, one of the items that identifies my marriage with the church, my son's marriage to the bride, when one of those is restored, that completeness, that's something worth celebrating. And thinking about it in symbolism and parallels and things like that, that God has swept through the dirt and the darkness and the cracks to restore part of that token of marriage between his people and his son. Your life has a worth. And in cold calculation, you could determine what someone's life is worth, how long they could work for you, how long they could produce value, how long they could, manufacture something for you, which you exchange for monetary goods, that their skills or their influence that could build or improve a society, or whether they're even to the point that some of their organs are reusable if they're in a car crash and you could try and help them to save someone else. That their inheritance or possessions are a gain to someone. But that's just all material things. Your worth to God is priceless, beyond any monetary valuation, because he sees who you are, who you will be, and grants you mercy and grace to bring that to fruition. So, my real encouragement tonight is never think that you are of no value or use or benefit to those around you, because God sees it and he broke open the most precious thing he had, and it cost the life of his son. And I'll leave it there.